Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel now. At Blind Community Thrift Store on YouTube, and more info about this radio reading service, Navalins, and the Blind Community Thrift Store at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. The Blind Community Thrift Store radio reading service will begin shortly. We will be reading local news from around the Southwest Missouri area, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on YouTube, KSMU, and on the Audio Reader Network at Kansas University. For more information, please visit us at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. Please stay tuned as our broadcast will start soon. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel now. At Blind Community Thrift Store on YouTube, and more info about this radio reading service, Navalins, and the Blind Community Thrift Store at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. The Blind Community Thrift Store radio reading service will begin shortly. We will be reading local news from around the Southwest Missouri area, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on YouTube, KSMU, and on the Audio Reader Network at Kansas University. For more information, please visit us at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. Please stay tuned as our broadcast will start soon. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel now. At Blind Community Thrift Store on YouTube, and more info about this radio reading service, Navalins, and the Blind Community Thrift Store at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. The Blind Community Thrift Store radio reading service will begin shortly. We will be reading local news from around the Southwest Missouri area, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on YouTube, KSMU, and on the Audio Reader Network at Kansas University. For more information, please visit us at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. Please stay tuned as our broadcast will start soon. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel now. At Blind Community Thrift Store on YouTube, and more info about this radio reading service, Navalins, and the Blind Community Thrift Store at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. The Blind Community Thrift Store radio reading service will begin shortly. We will be reading local news from around the Southwest Missouri area, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on YouTube, KSMU, and on the Audio Reader Network at Kansas University. For more information, please visit us at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. Please stay tuned as our broadcast will start soon. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel now. At Blind Community Thrift Store on YouTube, and more info about this radio reading service, Navalins, and the Blind Community Thrift Store at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. The Blind Community Thrift Store radio reading service will begin shortly. We will be reading local news from around the Southwest Missouri area, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on YouTube, KSMU, and on the Audio Reader Network at Kansas University. For more information, please visit us at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. Please.
Oh, I think I saw that on Facebook. Somebody posted a picture of it.
Yeah. And now we've got 3 missing.
That's about 10.
Okay. Whoops.
The time is 10 a.m.
You read first. Thank you for tuning in to the Blind Community Thrift Store radio reading service. My name is Pat, and I'm here with Noah. We invite you to listen to our broadcasts both live and on demand. Our live sessions are available on the Blind Community Thrift Store YouTube channel, Monday to Friday, between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. each week. Additionally, you can access on-demand content through the Audio Reader Network, which offers a wide range of audio materials for the visually impaired community. To explore content from the Audio Reader Network, please visit www.reader.ku.edu. The site provides details about accessing content via Amazon Alexa, Audio Reader Network mobile app, and information on receiving a radio to listen to the broadcast by KSMU Radio. All broadcasts are played over KSMU's subcarrier airwaves at 67 kilohertz on 91.1 from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Contact Audio Reader Network for information on receiving a pre-programmed radio.
Republic gains new multi-use farmers market space at J.R. Martin Park. The Republic community has gained a new event space that will host a farmers market in the future at J.R. Martin Park, 300 East Hines Street. Community members got to see the space in use for the first time on Friday, June 12th. About a dozen vendors selling local produce and handmade goods set up shop under a new pavilion. City leaders held a ribbon cutting for the Loop at J.R. Martin Park, the new community hub connected to the rest of the park via walking trail. A $2.7 capital improvement project created more parking, a concession stand, and food truck hookups in addition to the pavilion. I think if Lester Cox and J.R. Martin could see us right now in this brand new pavilion in front of us, they'd be absolutely tickled pink. And after that, I bet they'd be making a beeline to one of the food trucks to see what kind of food we're eating, quipped Republic Mayor Eric Franklin. Republic Parks and Recreation Director Chris Parks said one goal of the project is to host more events for the growing community. We're going to obviously program more things out there with this new space, so that we're excited about, he said. But we're also excited about just the everyday park user that's going to have a nice plaza area to eat lunch and have additional shade with the pavilion. Businesses from Republic and the surrounding communities were part of Friday's mini market. Lindsay Eakins, who sells homemade baked goods on the shelves at the local Republic Market, said she was excited to have a booth at the park. I love the one-on-one contact with everyone, she said. Parks said the Parks and Recreation Department hopes to work with the small farmers markets that already take place in Republic and begin hosting a market at the park in 2027. The city plans to add more amenities that will integrate into the walking loop, like an outdoor classroom and a playground besides the plaza. Parks said there is no set time frame for these projects as they will be worked into future capital improvement plans. The upgrades at J.R. Martin Park were funded by a 1/4 cent sales tax for capital improvements at parks, which residents voted to extend in 2022. The sales tax also funded an expansion of the Aquatic Center and new pickleball and tennis courts at Miller Park.
There is a custom-built castle, 13th century style, Ozarks Castle, hits the real estate market for $1.5 million. More than 2 decades ago, Robert Palmer drew a castle and told his wife, Bonnie Palmer, "I want to build you a castle." The drawing came to life as the Palmers, alongside their daughter, built what is now dubbed Chateau Charmant, French for charming castle. But after years hosting weddings and special events, the castle has now been listed for sale for $1.5 million. The castle at 1700 Martins Branch Road outside of Fordland in Christian County spans 10,400 square feet and sits on 66 acres of land. It includes a large chapel space that can hold about 200 people, a bride and groom space, 2 living suites, restrooms, and plenty of storage space. The grounds include a courtyard with a life-size chessboard, a Rapunzel tower, and gravel parking. 2 sheds and maintenance equipment also go along with the castle. The castle is tucked in by woods and reached by a gravel road that crosses the Moat, a local stream. The structure itself is complete with battlements, turrets, arched windows, several balconies, and a scaled roof tiles. The chateau was inspired by a 13th century castle the Palmers had seen in the south of France. With the drawing drafted, the trio got to work in 2005, and the castle opened its doors to host its first wedding in 2010. Now the Palmers have a whole book filled with notes from each bride and groom who have joined their lives at the chateau. They have become a part of the history of this castle, Bonnie Palmer said. Throughout the years, the Palmers have hosted school tours, mystery dinners, themed balls, lost Spanish treasure hunts, a Narnia fair, and the Monster Ball. With each event, Bonnie Palmer said they have tried to benefit someone in the community. The Palmers have also established a nonprofit, Castle Shire, focused on history education through its events. In a perfect world, the buyer of the castle would continue this tradition of combining events with history, Bonnie said. I hope whoever buys it, I hope they continue to share with people, she said. We'd love to see this whole place grow. Bonnie Palmer said the buyer will need to honor bookings already set for future event dates, which she said extend through the fall of 2027. After less than 24 hours of the listing being posted online, a handful of potential buyers were already scheduled to visit the property. The Palmers' realtor, Austin McGee, put on the first Monster Ball in 2019 and had continued a tradition since, hosting the main ball in the Shrine Mosque in Springfield with a VIP event at the castle. The annual Halloween celebration, which McGee said has now become the largest in the Midwest, is still planned to take place at the Chateau this October, but it may be its last with the property changing hands. Castle becoming a home. The castle has been more than a business for the Palmers, who had lived on the property for 23 years. They have occupied the western tower of the castle that is 3 stories tall and undergoing renovations. Even with the property listed for sale, Bonnie Palmer holds binders full of ideas for the rest of the grounds, from hobbit houses and a blacksmith shop to an extensive maze with different photo opportunities and a hall holding a restaurant. Robert Palmer, who calls water an enemy of all castles, said there are some spots in the castle in need of work after water damage, though the roof over the main part of the castle has recently been replaced. The look and decoration of nearly every room has been thoughtfully planned. The bridal dressing room takes inspiration from the throne room at Buckingham Palace, while others are adorned with paintings, large and small, rendered by Bonnie herself. Narrow arched windows around the castle all have been molded and poured by the Palmers from pieces Bonnie found thrifting. Several pieces of furniture are personal gifts or crafted items from Bonnie's family, while others have been donated to the castle throughout the years. Most of the furnishing and decor, including what past brides have passed on for future weddings, will be sold with the castle, save for a few items close to Bonnie's heart. With Robert Palmer nearing 80 and Bonnie in her 70s, the two said they are ready for retirement, and with none of their kids wanting to take on the castle, it will be sold. They are planning to travel and likely will spend some of their time visiting more castles. Robert's ancestors hail from Scotland and at one point owned a Scottish castle, so Scotland is already on the list of places to revisit. Through all the castle has seen and been setting for, Bonnie said her husband has been the most special part of it all. My husband is special, that he has such a loving, tender heart that he wants to share with the community, she said. This article is from Marty Mize on the Springfield News-Leader, posted this morning at 4 o'clock.
See Springfield City Utilities and Greene County employees' salaries. The wages and benefits of public employees consistently are among the top expenses local governments and entities fund using tax dollars. With the use of taxpayer funding comes public scrutiny as well, thanks to Missouri's Sunshine Law, which ensures the public has access to information detailing how their tax money is spent. As it has in the past, the News-Leader filed Sunshine Law requests with major taxpayer-funded employers in Springfield to produce a public paycheck report, a tool readers can use to research public payroll spending and maintain accountability. Available online at newsleader.com, the initial set of compensation databases are presented as they were provided by the institutions with minimal technical editing to make them easily searchable. In recent years, local law enforcement agencies in particular have struggled with staffing and remaining competitive with other area departments and fields. The Springfield Police Department is slowly rebuilding its sworn staff numbers after seeing positions sit vacant for years. As of the end of May, SPD had 46 vacant positions. Over the past 5 years, the department has carried an average of 60 open positions. The department has taken several steps to address shortages, including relaxing guidelines related to visible tattoos and beards. The 3/4-cent Springfield SGF sales tax passed by voters in November 2024 helped address another pressing problem: officer pay. From the total tax, a 1/4-cent permanent portion was earmarked for public safety, largely focused on police and fire pay. Police Major Tad Peters said the sales tax helped SPD land in the lead of Southwest Missouri department pay and within the top third in pay among the departments SPD competes with for hires. Tax revenue funded a 13.5% across-the-board pay increase for SPD officers. This set the starting pay at $56,825 for those enrolled in the police academy and at $63,128 once they graduate. The department has also offered a slew of other incentives, such as assistance paying off college debt and an additional $5,000 for new officers hired on, or $10,000 for those coming from a different agency. With vacancies persisting, Peter said the department has shifted how it staffs and builds schedules. While this has not necessarily meant officers are working more overtime, he said it means officers have had more overtime opportunities to choose from within SPD rather than outside entities and businesses that may hire officers for security. We have more overtime opportunities outside of the regular shifts that are not just being taken as much because the officers are getting plenty of hours in as it is already, Peters said. A lot of officers, are getting plenty of opportunities to work extra here at the police department and not taking those outside opportunities. Moving forward, turnover among police officers is also expected to level off, and the department expects fewer officers will retire. Peters explained this is largely due to the retirement systems currently in place: the Old City Police and Fire Pension Fund and the state's local government employees retirement system, or loggers. Under the city-operated, which is closed to new hires, financially it made sense for officers to retire after reaching 25 years of service, he said. With loggers, that timeline doesn't exist. Now people tend to stay longer, and so anyone hired after that day is likely to stay past the 25 years, and there's going to be a gap where those time spans separate. So we'll have people staying longer, and that'll create a space of several years when we'll have far fewer retirements, Peters said. As city leaders have worked through the upcoming fiscal year budget, personnel costs continue to take up the largest portion of general fund expenses. The new budget, which runs July 2026 through June 2027, includes pay plan improvements across departments. While departments requested a total 90 additional full-time positions, only 2.5 were included to be funded. The budget, which included a new position for the city manager's office, was approved Monday, June 8th. At that meeting, Council also had a first look at several amendments to collective bargaining agreements across employee groups. Those include across-the-board 1.3% raise to certain merit steps for employees represented by the Springfield Police Officers Association, an increase to the boot allowance for employees represented by International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers AFL-CIO Union 753, and the creation of a new top step for all those employee groups. The Greene County Commission also in recent budgets has put more emphasis on giving the county's employees raises that at minimum keep up with inflation. At the start of 2026, the Commission approved a budget that included a 3% cost of living adjustment, with eligible employees also receiving a 1.5% mid-year merit step. According to previous News-Leader reporting, this inflationary increase placed the minimum pay for county employees at $16.68 an hour. Still, the Greene County Sheriff's Office, and particularly the Greene County Jail, has struggled to be fully staffed. According to records obtained by the News-Leader through the Sunshine Law, the amount GSCO has paid in overtime has more than tripled since 2021. Maylin Jeffries, the county's Human Resources Director, said the county typically has at least 100 open positions, with the Sheriff's Office accounting for most of those. She said this is particularly the case since the jail requires around-the-clock daily staffing. Staffing demands have also increased after the opening of the new jail in 2022, which expanded the footprint and capacity of the number of inmates the jail could hold. In 2021, GSCO paid about $647,000 for almost 20,000 hours of overtime worked. Since 2022, GSCO workers have reported an average 49,400 hours in overtime each year. In 2025, more than $2.1 million was paid in overtime, roughly $647,000 of which was covered by federal grants. The city currently has 11 different pay schedules which are available for review on its website, including both union and non-union positions. Salaries are reviewed annually based on employee performance. With records reflecting year-end compensation collected through the end of 2025 and the hourly rates going into 2026, some top-paid employees currently may not show up at the top of the 2025 list. This is largely due to the change in city managers in 2025. Former city manager Jason Gage remained in his position until January 11, 2025, and received a significant severance package upon his departure. City manager David Cameron was hired in late May and started the job in early July. Cameron's contract set his base salary at $350,000, exceeding what Gage was making by the time he had left by more than $80,000. Because Cameron started in the middle of the year, his year-end salary does not reflect that he is a top-paid employee in 2026, his first full year in the top post. Other employees include Director of Aviation Brian Weiler, who announced he was retiring this summer. Weiler had also been one of 3 finalists for the city manager job last year. On May 26, the airport announced the hiring of Weiler's successor, David Schomburg. Schomburg, who has served as Assistant Director of Aviation Operations and Maintenance since 2017, will start the job June 28th and will be paid $220,000. Deputy City Managers Colin Quigley and Maurice Jones also make the top of the list. Quigley received a temporary 15% raise in January for the time that he served as interim city manager between Gage's departure and Cameron's onboarding. At the June 8th council meeting, the council also reviews an amendment to City Clerk Anita Cotter's employment contract that included an 8% raise, making her base salary $191,160. If approved by Council June 22nd, this salary will go into effect July 1st. Springfield City Council members hold their office seats as volunteers and are not paid. This is based on Springfield's city charter, which also establishes a $200 monthly stipend for the mayor. Recently, discussions have circulated about making elected official roles paid as the city continues to grow in size and its responsibilities, but no solid proposal has yet been put forward. Changing the current rules of payment would require voter approval. For the county, the pay structure for elected officials is determined by either state law or a salary commission made up of the local office holders. Pay for some offices, including sheriff and prosecuting attorney, is largely based on the pay of associate circuit judges, which is set by statute in combination with the assessed valuation of the county. The highest paid county employee is medical examiner Dieter Duff, who was paid nearly $300,500 in 2025. Jeffrey said this is on par with what forensic pathologists make nationwide due to being licensed medical doctors and requiring robust education and training. She also noted there are simply not enough licensed experts to meet the need for medical examiners. When we were initially trying to fill that position, I think we tried to fill it for 2 or 3 years before we got our current medical examiner that we have, Dr. Duff. You would never even be able to get somebody with the experience and expertise that you need without offering that kind of competitive nationwide salary. The forensic pathologist pay is largely an outlier for county pay, however. Jeffrey said the county is considered under market when it comes to compensation. But to make up for this, she said the county tries to incentivize hires with its benefits package, such as paid time off and contributions to insurance. Jeffrey's estimated benefits usually add about 25 to 35% to an employee's salary. Ultimately, employee pay is limited by the county's tax revenue. We always want to be very considerate of the fact that this is coming from tax revenue, and there's a lot of other programs and services that the citizens also need, she said. It's a very delicate balance. Based on 2026 hourly wages, Duff is the 3rd highest paid after 2 resident physicians whose yearly salary is lower because they work part-time. Greene County Prosecutor Dan Patterson is the 2nd highest paid, receiving a yearly salary of $165,000 by the end of 2025. Several destructive storms in 2025 that toppled trees and left many in Springfield without power meant some city utilities employees were paid overtime last year, per CU's communications manager Jamie Presley. That means this year's database includes some workers that make it higher on the top on the list of top paid employees based on 2025 total wages despite lower hourly rates. Unsurprisingly, top paid employees at city utilities are still the top leaders of the utility. CU President and CEO Dwayne Folk received nearly $409,000 in 2025. Folk was hired for the top role in late 2024 with a starting salary of $400,000, according to previous News-Leader reporting. His predecessor, Gary Gibson, made about $394,000 in 2023. Folk has worked for CU since 2017.
From the Springfield News-Leader this weekend or today, GOP complaints grow as Missouri judges edit misleading ballot language. This was submitted to the Missouri Independent by Jason Hancock yesterday morning. As Missouri Secretary of State Denny Hoskins is often responsible for reducing complicated ballot measures to a few sentences voters can understand. In his first year and a half in office, judges have repeatedly found those sentences unfair, insufficient, or misleading. Courts have rejected or rewritten Hoskins' descriptions 5 times on measures involving abortion, redistricting, public education, private school funding, and the initiative petition process itself. But the pattern extends beyond the Secretary of State's office. During that time, judges have also rewritten ballot summaries drafted by Republican lawmakers 3 times for proposed constitutional amendments dealing with abortion, changing how citizens' initiatives pass, and phasing out the income tax. Taken together and arriving at a pace with little precedent in recent Missouri history, they have turned a technical piece of election administration into one of Missouri's most consequential political battlegrounds. They've also made Missouri one of the clearest examples of a national fight over direct democracy. We have seen a huge increase in attempts by state legislatures and state officials to make it harder for their citizens to use their initiative and referendum rights, said Derek Klinger, Senior Counsel for the State Democracy Research Initiative at the University of Wisconsin Law School. Missouri, he added, has probably been the hottest spot in the last couple of years for these types of conflict. Fights are not new. Ballot language has long drawn lawsuits, but experts say the conflicts have become more frequent and more intense as voters in Republican-led states have used citizen-led measures to approve policies lawmakers opposed or refused to enact. In response, lawmakers and state officials have pushed higher passage thresholds, tighter signature rules, post-election rollbacks, and more aggressive fights over the official language voters see. In Missouri, that fight has repeatedly centered on the few official sentence voters see when they head to the polls. David Niven, a University of Cincinnati political scientist who studies campaigns and political communications, called ballot language the new and most fierce frontier of electoral manipulation. This is the new gerrymandering, Niven said, describing ballot language as a strategy to obfuscate or completely deceive the voter. Hoskins rejected the idea that repeated rewrites shows his office has failed to write fair summaries. He said disputes over ballot language begins with semantics and how people interpret the meaning of words and phrases. When unelected judges change ballot language drafted by elected officials to fit the lens through which those judges personally see things, they are effectively legislating from the bench, Hoskins said in a statement to The Independent. Not only that, is that an encroachment well beyond their purview? It is an abandonment of the oath they took to be fair and impartial. Hoskins said the trend is gravely concerning. Attorney General Catherine Hanaway, whose office defends ballot summaries in court, said the Western District Court of Appeals has shown too little difference to ballot language written by elected officials. Challenges to state laws begin in Cole County, whose appeals go to the Western District. Over the past year, the Western District has repeatedly approved edits to every ballot title it has considered, Hanaway said, arguing that courts have rewritten summaries despite long-standing requirements for deference to the people's elected representative and the elected Secretary of State. Hanaway said lawmakers and the Secretary of State have a right to emphasize what they view as important in ballot summaries because that's what the people of Missouri elected their representatives to do when the court rewrites a ballot. The most recent example surrounds a proposed constitutional amendment overhauling Missouri's tax code. The summary for the measure, called Amendment 5, and written by the legislature, told voters it would phase out the income tax based on revenue growth, reduce personal property and other local taxes when local revenue increases, modify sales and use taxes to eliminate income tax, and reduce local taxes and protect funding for public schools and other purposes. An appeals court determined this earlier this month that was not enough. The summary, the court ruled, failed to sufficiently inform voters that the amendment would expand the General Assembly's power to impose sales and use taxes while suspending or eliminating existing constitutional limits on taxation. Voters will now be told the amendment would require lawmakers to phase out the state income tax based on revenue growth, authorize the expansion of sales and use taxes, curtail constitutional limits on taxing goods and services, and require local tax rate cuts without reducing school funding if local sales tax revenues increase. Governor Mike Kehoe, who has made Amendment 5 his administration's top priority, framed the ruling as judicial interference. It is unfortunate that 3 unelected judges decided to mislead voters by rewriting the legislatively approved ballot language for Amendment 5, Kehoe said in an emailed statement. Courts have repeatedly described the problem differently, not as judges seizing authority from elected officials, but as the judicial branch enforcing the legal requirement that officials' summaries accurately describe what a measure should actually do. Sean Nelson, a longtime liberal organizer in Missouri, who has been involved in numerous initiative petition campaigns across the country, puts it more bluntly. Courts strike down ballot summaries when they're filled with lies or skewed language that breaks the law, he said. The redistricting referendum case, Hoskins wrote language asking voters they wanted to repeal Missouri's existing gerrymandered congressional plan that protects incumbent politicians and replaced it with new boundaries that keep more cities and counties intact, are more compact, and better reflects statewide voting patterns. The referendum was aimed at blocking a new Republican-backed congressional map drawn during a special session last year to help the GOP win 7 of Missouri's 8 congressional seats. Hoskins' own attorneys conceded in court that describing the existing map as gerrymandered and protecting incumbents was argumentative and likely to prejudice voters. The courts agreed and rewrote the summary. In the abortion case, Republican lawmakers placed a proposed constitutional amendment on the ballot that would repeal the abortion rights amendment voters passed in 2024 and replace it with a near total ban. But the original summary, written by lawmakers, did not tell voters the measure would repeal the 2024 abortion rights amendment. Cole County Circuit Judge Daniel Green, a Republican, ruled the legislature's summary was unfair and insufficient and ordered it rewritten. After Hoskins submitted revised language, Green again said it failed to adequately state that the proposal would repeal the existing constitutional protection for abortion rights. The Western District Court of Appeals later imposed its own language, requiring voters to be told the measure would repeal the 2024 voter-approved amendment providing reproductive health care rights, including abortion through fetal viability. For Amendment 4, a Republican-backed proposal to make citizen-led constitutional amendments harder to pass, lawmakers' original language emphasized provisions dealing with foreign campaign spending, petition fraud, and public hearings. Green again ordered these provisions removed from the ballot summary, writing that they largely restate the current law and did not reveal what the measure actually would do. For the initiative aimed at barring public money from flowing to private schools, the appeals court found Hoskins' summary misleading because it told voters the measure would eliminate programs providing direct aid to students with special education needs. The petition itself included an exception for disability-related services. Cole County Judge Christopher Limbaugh, a Republican, likewise ordered revision to Hoskins' summary of a proposed amendment declaring public education a fundamental right, finding it unfair and insufficient. And in a proposed amendment aimed at protecting the initiative process itself, courts rejected Hoskins' wording, saying the measure would increase influence over Missouri law by people who are not required to be Missouri citizens or elected officials. The courts found that phrase argumentative and likely to prejudice voters. From rare to routine, the conflict did not begin with Hoskins, but it has accelerated on his watch. Hoskins' predecessor, Republican Jay Ashcroft, also had ballot summaries rewritten by judges, but during his 8 years in office, he also scored several wins, such as when a teachers' union-backed campaign sued in 2021 over the summary of an initiative barring public money for private schools. A Cole County judge upheld the challenge language as fair and sufficient. Under Hoskins, courts have rejected or rewritten every first version of a ballot summary from his office that reached a ruling after being challenged. Niven, a University of Cincinnati professor, said the cases point to a larger shift in state politics as heavily gerrymandered or one-party legislatures drift farther from the views of the median voter. When the government gets further away from the average voter thinks, they can't afford straightforward ballot questions because they'll lose them, Niven said. Most voters, he said, are not reading the full text of a constitutional amendment or studying competing policy briefs before they vote. For the average voter, the question is largely what they see on the ballot. Klinger from the State Democracy Research Initiative was more cautious about how much Ballot language alone can sway voters, saying political science research suggests voters are influenced by a combination of official language, campaign advertising, media coverage, and partisan cues. But, he said, ballot language still matters because it is often the final official description a voter sees. A litigation itself can shape a campaign. Court fights cost money and eat time. Even a court eventually corrects misleading or insufficient language. Campaigns may have already lost the months. From the hardball politics perspective, Klinger said, state officials may feel they have little to lose by pushing aggressive language. They oppose this, he said. A state court reverses, then that's kind of the end of it, and there often really isn't any other sort of punishment when they defy the legal standards. And courts don't always reverse. In Ohio, voters last year reconsidered a redistricting amendment aimed at curbing gerrymandering, but the official language told them it would require gerrymandering. The Ohio Supreme Court largely upheld that language, and the measure failed. Florida, Arkansas, South Dakota, Arizona, and other states have seen escalating fights over initiative rules, signature requirements, ballot language, or legislative efforts to make citizen-led measures harder to pass. In Missouri, the initiative process has become the state's most visible counterweight to Republican control of the Capitol. Voters used it to expand Medicaid in 2020, legalize recreational marijuana in 2022, and in 2024, voters raised the minimum wage, required paid sick leave, legalized sports betting, and enshrined abortion rights in the Constitution. Republican lawmakers have repeatedly tried to make citizen-led constitutional amendments harder to pass, arguing out-of-state money that has poured into campaigns has allowed liberal interest groups to hijack the process. Supporters of the current system argue it is one of the few remaining tools voters have when the legislature refuses to act. Direct democracy exists, Klinger said, for moments when the elected officials are not doing what the voters want. That makes conflicts between voters and state officials inherent in the process. In states dominated by one party, he said initiative petitions may be one thing people have to maybe push back against the one-party control. Nivens argues that modern politics is increasingly about winning elections before they happen and about who gets the final say. The legislature thinks they are ultimately in charge, Nivens said, not the people. This again was submitted to the Missouri Independent via the Springfield News-Leader, or presented here through Springfield News-Leader by Jason Hancock.
3 missing after water rescue team crews respond to Lake Springfield. Members of the Springfield Fire Department's water rescue team responded to Lake Springfield on Sunday, June 14th for reports of 4 individuals in need of rescue. A news release from the city says 1 juvenile female was rescued and taken to Cox Hospital. As of 10 p.m. Sunday, 3 people were still unaccounted for. Fire Chief David Pennington said search efforts would be paused until the morning because it was too dangerous to continue in the dark. We have searched everywhere they could be above water. We do not believe them to be at the surface, Pennington said in the release, further categorizing Monday's efforts to be recovery rather than rescue. 3 members of the water rescue team were injured during the rescue and transported to Cox. 2 have been discharged and 1 is being evaluated in the emergency room and will likely be admitted. Access to Lake Springfield and the boathouse was closed as of Sunday night.
With the weather, it was a treacherous weekend on lakes. We had two shorter articles here. The body of a Marshfield man was found in an Arkansas lake. Marion County, Arkansas, an Arkansas sheriff has put out a statement reporting the body of a Marshfield, Missouri man has been located after going missing on Saturday, June 13th. According to a press release from Marion County Sheriff's Office, Caleb Blair, 25, was found at Camp Galilee Cove area of Bull Shoals Lake on Sunday, June 14th, around 3:15 p.m. Release claims Blair and other family members had been staying at a resort when he left to fish around 6 a.m. on Saturday. The sheriff says it is believed Blair had been fishing on a small watercraft when he was caught in a severe thunderstorm, with his family members reporting him missing around 11:30 a.m. The Marion County Sheriff's Office was assisted by Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the Missouri State Highway Patrol, the Newton County Sheriff's Office, and by members of the Christian Aid Ministries Search and Rescue Team. Officials state that the body has been transported to coroner's office, where it will be submitted to the State Medical Examiner's section of the Arkansas State Crime Laboratory to determine the cause and manner of death. Then a MSHP recovers missing Kansas person from Table Rock Lake, updated 7:20 p.m. on the 14th. MSHP has released an update on the incident, reporting that the person and the vehicle were recovered from the lake. Troopers note that the individual is a missing person out of Kansas, with the Overland Park Police Department taking over the investigation. Officials are working on identifying the cause of death in the accident. The Southern Stone County Fire Protection District assisted in the incident with MSHP's dive team and drug crime prevention. From the original story, Kimberling City law enforcement was on the scene attempting to recover a vehicle that was submerged in Table Rock Lake. Missouri State Highway Patrol tells Ozarks First that officials were notified of the incident around 12:30 p.m. Saturday, June 13th, near Jobald Park in Kimberling City. Authorities said at this time they believed there is one person in the vehicle. These two articles were from Ozarks First.
Answer Man. What's being built at the decommissioned CU power plant near Lake Springfield? Answer Man. What's being built on the site of the decommissioned CU James River Power Station on Kissick Avenue? From Beverly Cluth of Springfield. Beverly, you're not the only person who's asked me this question in recent months. The site is hard to miss for those driving along Kissick Avenue south of Lake Springfield. If you recall, the part of the plant with 4 smokestacks was demolished via explosives on February 19, 2022. Our man, Rance Berger, former managing editor of the Springfield Daily Citizen, filed a story, and freelancer Jim Wilson took the big kaboom video. Here's what's being built. It's a 31 megawatt battery energy storage system. For those fond of acronyms, it's a BESS, or BESS. According to the Clean Grid Alliance, BESS is an energy storage system that uses a group of batteries to store electricity. It enables clean energy resources like wind and solar to be stored and released when energy demand is highest. Energy storage can reduce costs and support a flexible, reliable grid by storing excess power that would otherwise be wasted and providing that power back to the grid when needed most. The site has 274 cubes, which basically are large storage cabinets. There are rows and rows of these cube cabinets on the site. All the cubes that will go in have already been placed on site. The storage system will not be under a roof. It will be just as it appears now, only with a secured perimeter and secured entry and exit. It should be ready to operate by the end of the year, according to Warren Brooks, Vice President of Electric Operations for City Utilities, who met me at the site. A similar but smaller system along Highway 65 should be online by the end of July. Brooks said he and city utilities are well aware of the public concern and skepticism over battery energy storage systems. The Greene County Commission on April 6 denied a request to rezone 40 acres for a lithium-ion BESS proposed by Sophos Power. The denial followed a lengthy public hearing in which more than 24 residents and firefighters raised concerns with the $285 million project. The site proposed was 2 miles north of Springfield, southeast of Lake McDaniel. One of the main concerns over that project was the use of lithium-ion batteries. They are often used in BESS projects, but they are also widely considered the most dangerous due to the risk of overheating, which can lead to a chain reaction of uncontrolled, continued heating that can lead to fire or explosion. The big difference between the project denied by Greene County and the projects constructed by city utilities is the type of battery. The project north of town was a lithium-ion battery installation, Brooks said. We went in a different direction with the chemistry of the battery. So these are zinc batteries, which means they are fully recyclable, they're non-flammable, and they're domestically sourced. The project at the decommissioned power plant started early this year and has been progressing rapidly. It's been such a flurry of activity, Brooks said. Part of our job at City Utilities is that we have to not only be working to take care of our customers today, but we have to work to take care of our customers for the years to come, and that's what these projects do, he said. Yes, CU has received numerous inquiries about the project, said Jamie Presley, CU spokeswoman. We understand neighbors asking questions about it, and of course we want to provide the answers, she said. The 2 battery storage sites will cost about $75 million, Presley said in the fall. Another project that started in the fall. On September 30th, City Utilities broke ground on 3 new natural gas turbines at the McCartney Generating Station in Stratford. The 3 turbines are expected to cost about $230 million. The turbines will provide 150 megawatts of locally sourced power and can run on natural gas, fuel, oil, or hydrogen. They can produce power in 5 minutes, according to CU. That allows CU to quickly fine-tune power output to match demand.
Greene County lawmaker Bill Owen named Missouri House Budget Chair. State Representative Bill Owen of Greene County has been tapped as the next chair of the Missouri House Budget Committee. Speaker-elect Alex Riley announced Owen's appointment, highlighting his financial and legislative experience, according to a community announcement. Owen, who represents District 131, spent 39 years in the banking industry. He previously served in the Missouri House in 1981 and 1982 and returned to the legislature in 2020. Owen had chaired the House Financial Institution Committee and been a member of the House Budget Committee and several appropriations subcommittees. The appointment is dependent on Owen's re-election to another term. He faces no challenger in the August Republican primary and in November will be running against Democrat Ashley Cozzens, who Owen defeated in 2024 by a vote of 76% to 24%. Owen to bring backing and legislative experience to a role. Owen has a banking background that includes expertise in lending, financial institutions, and economic development. He completed studies at the Graduate School of Banking at University of Wisconsin-Madison, according to the announcement. Riley said that Owen's experience will be beneficial. His decades in banking and his commitment to responsible stewardship of taxpayer dollars will make him exceptionally qualified to lead our House budget process and fulfill our constitutional duty to deliver a balanced budget, Riley said in the announcement. Owen is expected to focus on fiscal responsibility. As budget chair, Owen will oversee the development of Missouri's annual state budget. He will work with House members through the appropriations process to ensure taxpayer dollars are spent responsibly, according to the announcement. Missourians expect their government to live within its means and focus on its most important responsibilities, Owen said in the announcement. I am honored by the opportunity to lead the House Budget Committee and look forward to working on with my colleagues to craft a budget that reflects our conservative principles, protect taxpayers, and positions Missouri for continued success. Owen is a graduate of Drury University. He and his wife Carol have 2 children. This article is submitted by Janice Reeser to the Springfield News-Leader this morning.
Missouri skydiving accident kills 12 after plane crash near Butler. 12 people are dead after a skydiving plane crashed in Butler, Missouri on June 14th, according to Bates County Emergency Management. Dennis Jacobs, director of Bates County Emergency Management, told USA Today that 11 people on board the plane were skydivers and the other person was a pilot. The plane, identified by the Federal Aviation Administration as a Pacific Aerospace P-750, crashed just after takeoff from Butler Memorial Airport, roughly 65 miles south of Kansas City. It's the deadliest crash in the airport's roughly 50-year history, said Jacobs, who is also the airport manager. Of the 11 skydivers, 9 were experienced and 2 were participating in tandem jumps, Jacobs said, adding that multiple horrified witnesses saw the crash, including some loved ones of those on board. One lady that was there was watching her brother, and his wife was there too, and she was supposed to be on the plane with them, Jacobs said, adding that the wife was a regular diver who got bumped by a tandem jumper. The private plane, operated by Skydive Kansas City, had departed from Butler Memorial Airport and turned around for an unknown reason before crashing near a local highway around 11:20 a.m., according to Bates County Emergency Management. Skydive Kansas City flew numerous trips over the weekend, Bates County Emergency Management said. The plane took off on June 14th but struggled to climb. It attempted to make a rough turn before crashing, to the horror of those watching. They weren't able to get 100 feet off the ground, Jacobs said, adding that the weather was beautiful. It very likely will be an engine problem, but we won't know until the NTSB report, he added, referring to the National Transportation Safety Board. The NTSB, which is leading the investigation, said investigators were expected to arrive at the scene on June 15th. A final report on the cause of the crash is expected to be published in 12 to 24 months, reports Kansas City news station KSHB. In a statement to Kansas City news station KCTV, Skydive Kansas City called the crash a devastating loss for everyone connected to Skydive Kansas City and for the wider skydiving community, adding that it won't release any of the victims' names until all next of kin have been notified. Skydive Kansas City is closely working with local authorities, the FAA, and NTSB, the statement reads. We ask for privacy as we direct all efforts towards managing this tragedy and remaining available to authorities as they work to determine the cause.
Thank you for tuning in to the Blind Community Thrift Store radio reading service. Our broadcasts are available live on YouTube from Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., and on demand via the Audio Reader Network at www.reader.ku.edu. Access options include Amazon Alexa, mobile app, and radio via KSMU Radio at 91.1 FM, 67 kilohertz subcarrier from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays. Contact the Audio Reader Network for radio receivers. In the News-Leader, Springfield man pleads guilty to embezzling clients' retirement funds. A Springfield man working as an investment and retirement professional admitted in federal court Thursday, June 11th, that he used clients' retirement funds for his own personal expenses. Bob Hunter, 72, pleaded guilty to 1 count of wire fraud and 1 count of money laundering. According to the plea agreement from 2011 through at least March of 2025, he operated 2 organizations, the Summit Group of Missouri Incorporated and Master Trust under the Summit Group of Missouri, and promoted various retirement programs including Supplemental Executive Retirement Plans, SERP. Instead of investing clients' monies into these programs like he promised, Hunter instead used them for personal expenses such as hotel stays and credit card payments, as well as making lulling payments to other investors as a way to conceal the nature and scope of his scheme, according to the court documents. The plea agreement also notes that he would make statements to clients to keep them from contacting the authorities and perpetrating that an investment account for the client still existed, although it was liquidated without the client's authorization. According to court documents, Hunter defrauded clients for a total of more than $373,000, which he was ordered to pay as restitution. Hunter is subject to be sentenced to up to 20 years in federal prison without parole and a maximum fine of $250,000 for wire fraud, and up to 10 years in prison without parole and maximum fine of $250,000 for money laundering. Per the plea agreement, the prosecution agrees to recommend a sentence at the low end of the sentencing range. A sentencing hearing will be scheduled for a later time. Hunter was released on bond after entering his plea.
Driver arrested after deadly crash on I-44 in Springfield. Springfield police are investigating a deadly crash that occurred just after midnight Friday, June 12th on Interstate 44. Police responded to a two-vehicle crash at 12:13 a.m. in the 300 block of East I-44 at the 79.2-mile marker between Glenstone Avenue and Kansas Expressway exits, according to a news release from the Springfield Police Department. The release says Harlan King, 33, of Richland, was driving westbound on I-44 in a 2001 Ford Expedition when he hit a construction barrier. King's vehicle spun and hit a 2021 Dodge van, causing the van to leave the roadway and overturn. Police say the driver of the Dodge van, 46-year-old Christopher Reeves of Hampton, Virginia, was ejected and died at the scene. King and his vehicle were located at the exit ramp at I-44 and Kansas Expressway. King was arrested and booked into the Greene County Jail on suspicion of leaving the scene of an accident, according to the release. The case will be presented to the Greene County Prosecutor's Office for review and potential filings of criminal charges. The circumstances of the crash are part of an ongoing investigation. Anyone with information is asked to contact the Springfield Police Department at 417-864-1810 or make an anonymous tip to Crime Stoppers at 417-869-TIPS or online at p3tips.com. This was Springfield's 9th fatal motor vehicle crash in 2026, which have resulted in 10 deaths.
Springfield drive-through marijuana dispensary requests extended hours. Marijuana dispensaries that offer drive-through service in Springfield are a step closer to being allowed to stay open later into the night. The Springfield Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of an amendment to city regulations that would extend cannabis drive-through hours to 1:30 a.m. in a 5-2 vote Thursday, June 11th. The proposal was submitted by V3MO Vending 5 LLC, which operates Terabis Dispensary at 850 East Kearney Street. In total, there are 9 marijuana dispensaries within Springfield city limits, according to city staff, who referenced the state list of licensed dispensaries. Under current city rules, marijuana facilities can only be open between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. Initially, Terabis had proposed changing city regulations to allow drive-through dispensaries to remain open 24/7, though that proposal was postponed until P&Z discussed it. The current proposal is to allow operations until 1:30 a.m., the same limit applied to retail liquor sales under state law. Nick Laromatis, Terabis's chief legal officer, in an emailed statement ahead of Thursday's meeting, called the proposal a compromise. We have been working closely with Chief of Police and city leadership to reach a compromise that balances community safety with expanded access for patients and customers. The solution we arrived at together aligns drive-through dispensary operating hours with the hours already permitted for liquor stores in Springfield, ensuring consistent regulatory treatment across comparable businesses. Ryan DeBolf, a local lawyer and lobbyist representing the applicant, said The change to 1:30 a.m. also was agreed to after discussions with the Springfield Police Department about safety concerns and staffing beyond 1:30 a.m. SPD has no comments on the staff report of the proposal. He said the applicant also worked with several other city staff and some members of the Springfield City Council to arrive at the current proposal. Because of the volume of sales in their Springfield dispensary and their experience in the other dispensaries, they believe that this makes commercial sense for them to be open later, DeBoff said. It's because there's more sale of product, which obviously makes commercial sense, also makes sense for the city from a sales tax revenue standpoint. He noted that Terabas has had no security incidents and the extended hours are not anticipated to change that. The longer hours would also not apply to smoke shops and vape shops, which lack similar regulations, or dispensaries that do not have drive-thrus. The city did not have data as to how many of the 9 dispensaries in the city have a drive-thru, though many advertise the fact online. The 2 local residents previously shared feedback opposing the change, though no one spoke against the proposal on June 11th. P&Z commissioners share mixed feelings. Commissioners Eric Pauley and Dan Scott both expressed unease with the change. Scott said he had a hard time equating marijuana sales with liquor sales, though Commissioner Jennifer McClure said it was a fair comparison of sales of 2 controlled substances. There's a track record with alcohol sales, Scott said, and I don't see a track record for this yet. It may happen at some point in time, but I have to respect the fact that whoever put the regulations in place did their own due diligence that I don't feel comfortable unwinding. Pauley said he felt it would put dispensaries that did not have a drive-thru at a disadvantage with Terabas located on Kearney. It went against years-long effort to improve and redevelop the street. Newly appointed Commissioner Brandy Morris, who also raised questions around cases of people driving while intoxicated after purchasing cannabis products. Yet Commissioner Randall Donig said that hours of operation would not impact those who drink and drive or get high and drive, and said, in his eyes, the dispensaries should be able to operate 24/7. Before recreational marijuana was legalized, the product was legal for medical uses, and he said all other medical drugs are available 24/7 pharmacies. So to me, we're talking about a drug that has been proven to work for people for a number of medical reasons, Donig said. And we're saying, okay, people, I'm sorry, but because your drug is also recreational, we're not going to allow you to access it after 10 o'clock. And I have a real problem with that. Ultimately, P&Z voted to recommend approval in a 5-2 vote, with Pauley and Scott opposed and Commissioners Lane Hunton and Christopher Solier absent. Growing trend in Missouri. There are no statewide regulations regarding hours of operation for marijuana facilities, and those details instead are left to municipalities to decide. Lisa Cox, Communications Director of the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services, confirmed that there have been no discussions of letting a state standard for dispensary hours of operation. Terabas operates under other dispensaries in the state, including several in the St. Louis metro area and Illinois. Several cities are discussing changes to dispensary hours regulations. A proposal to allow 24/7 operations for dispensaries located at 1,000 feet from residentially zoned areas is under review in Kansas City. It has remained in committee for months. Springfield Senior Planner Daniel Neal also presented that in St. Louis, a bill was introduced to extend operating hours until midnight. In Springfield's case, properties immediately behind the Terabas dispensary are zoned for residential use. O'Fallon recently did change its laws to allow 24/7 drive-through dispensaries. The proposal in front of Springfield P&Z June 11 included a letter from O'Fallon Mayor Bill Hennessy vouching for Terabiths, calling them a model operator in our community, and labeling the shift to 24/7 operations there a success. Another 24-hour drive-through dispensary also recently opened in Overland. The proposed hours change will now head to council for a public hearing at its June 13th meeting, with a final vote anticipated July 27th. This article is actually submitted to Springfield News-Leader Friday on June 12th by Marta Mize.
Whoa, this is awesome. Women spend first night at Safe to Sleep's new shelter. Zena Ellis was among the first guests to walk into the new Safe to Sleep shelter on Tuesday, June 9th, the soft opening for the facility. Safe to Sleep, a program of Crosslines Community Outreach, is the only year-round low-barrier shelter for women in Greene County. For nearly 15 years, the overnight shelter has been housed in the gymnasium of a church, with the women sleeping on cots that had to be set up every evening and then put away in the morning. The new Ramona Baker Emergency Women's Shelter, named in honor of the woman who founded Safe to Sleep in 2011, changes all that. And from the moment Ellis entered the building, her eyes darted from the ceiling to the walls to the floor and then back to the ceiling. "Whoa, this is awesome," Ellis said, a smile spreading across her face. "Wow, this kitchen is beautiful, so state-of-the-art." The 21-year-old made her way back to the large sleeping area and searched for the pod marked with her name. She dropped her heavy backpack on the bed and sat down. "This is so cute," she said. "This space is so freaking cool." The public was invited to see the new shelter space at a ribbon cutting May 28th, but a select group of 8 women who have been staying at Safe to Sleep's longtime location at Pathways United Methodist Church were invited to be the first guests to see the new shelter and spend the night for a trial run last Tuesday. Last week's soft opening allowed staff to talk to the women afterward and find out what works and what doesn't work before the new location fully opens to the Safe to Sleep women and volunteers on Monday, June 15th. "I cannot wait," said shelter monitor Stacy Austin as she waited for the women to arrive. "I think all the ones that were chosen were the absolute right ones. They're the ones that work on what they're supposed to work on. They're going to give the best feedback. I'm so excited to see their faces," Austin added. "They're going to love it." Since 2011, Safe to Sleep has provided a safe overnight shelter for thousands of women via cots set up in whatever space was available. The program started out with about 8 cots in an apartment owned by The Kitchen, Inc. As the need grew, so did the program. It's been housed in different churches over the years, but landed at Pathways United Methodist Church early on and remains there until Monday, June 15th, when the program will permanently transition into the new space located on the Crosslines Community Outreach Campus at 3055 East Division Street. No longer a mess of cots scattered around a church gymnasium with guests scrambling to get a spot next to one of the 5 electrical outlets, the new $4 million shelter has 39 sleeping pods complete with a bed, an outlet, personal light, and a fan. These pods allow the women more dignity and privacy, a place to charge their phone, as well as the ability to store their bags during the day, so long as their belongings can fit neatly under the bed. Consistent guests return to the same pod every night. The women who have mobility issues will get the pods closer to the bathrooms. The new shelter has 11 additional emergency beds in case the pods fill up. The facility has a full kitchen, commissary, laundry room, and a computer area. There's a heat treatment room in case someone's belongings are suspected of having bed bugs. And the mattresses for the shelter beds are waterproof and bedbug proof. The bathroom has more shower stalls and mirrors than what was available to the ladies at Pathways, which will make for less chaotic mornings as the 35 to 40 women all scramble to get ready and out of the door by 7:30 a.m. In addition to having her own personal space, Ellis says she is excited to be able to store her heavy backpack during the day. You can feel safe enough to leave it and not worry about it getting taken or disappearing or someone going through it. It's a comfort thing too. I mean, who wants to be carrying everything all the time, she said. It's also a confidence thing. People may not think of it that way, but people look at you weird when you're just lugging around a bunch of stuff. People look at you like, is this person homeless? That speculation does kind of hurt, she continued, and makes you feel a little lesser than them because, oh, they've got a nice car, they've got a nice house, they've got nice stuff. Why can't I have that? Well, because things are difficult. Like many of the women who stay at Safe to Sleep, Ellis has a job. She works full-time at a motel. She's been spending the night at Safe to Sleep for a couple of weeks now and is working to be reunified with her 2 babies, a toddler and a 1-year-old, who've been placed in foster care. They are helping me with getting back on my feet, Ellis said of the staff at Safe to Sleep. My case manager is amazing. She is super understanding. She told me straight I need to get a better paying job, and I'm like, thank you for being straight and honest with me. Thank you for not sugarcoating it. Consistent guests are offered case management services to help them work towards stability. This includes goal setting, helping them get identification cards or other important documents, helping find a job or applying for disability, finding housing, getting to and from medical and mental health appointments, and getting connected with other resources. The new permanent location, with the shelter being part of the Crosslines campus, will improve the case management capabilities in a number of ways, said Jessica Luris, the director of Safe to Sleep. Our case manager right now goes to Pathways on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday mornings. She comes to the church in the morning, and the women that have signed up to meet with her stay at the church after the shelter has closed, Luris said as she waited for the women to arrive for the soft opening last week. And so she's often at the church by herself with maybe 8 women. That's not great. At the new location, the case manager has an office on site. Other Crossline staff will be milling about the campus so she won't be alone with the women. And as opposed to the current setup at Pathways, the case manager now has access to her home, to her office, a computer, a printer, and working Wi-Fi. A new shelter has computers for guests that are available to be used while they are working with their case manager. The computers are to be used for things like job or housing searches, resumes, and applications, Luris said. We try to be as low barrier as possible. We don't have a cutoff time for when they can come in. We don't require IDs. We don't do mental health screenings, Luris said. We're a 30-day shelter. If they want to stay longer than 30 days, they have to meet with our case manager, set goals, and work on things. We want to help them move forward, find housing, employment, all that stuff, she said. That process of discharging guests after 30 days if they're not interested in working with a case manager helps us to keep from being at capacity. If we didn't have a time limit, obviously we would be full every night. But we also want to be compassionate towards the women who are trying to get back on their feet, she added. 30 days isn't enough time to get out of homelessness. Among those 8 women who were picked for the soft opening last week was 62-year-old Rhonda Blakemore, someone who stayed at Safe to Sleep for a time back when the program first started in 2011. Blakemore recalled how the women's shelter program had to move from church to church for a time before finding a more permanent home at Pathways. Blakemore talked with a reporter while she ate dinner. From time to time, Blakemore would thumb through a book Luris had given her titled Safe to Sleep, It's a God Thing, written by Ramona Baker a few years ago. The book chronicles Baker's journey creating the shelter program. Blakemore said she is looking forward to reading it. She was a very, very positive woman. She was so sweet, Blakemore said of Baker. She worked her butt off and she cared about everyone that was in the shelter. One thing she made sure, they were safe. Blakemore credited Safe to Sleep with helping her get back on her feet and into a home on College Street where she has lived for 16 years. She said she moved briefly to Jacksonville, Florida this year, but hated it. She returned to Springfield on May 1st and knew she could stay at Safe to Sleep while she worked to get into another rental. I know exactly where to come back to. I know where my resources are, she said, smiling. Blakemore said she felt honored to be among the ladies picked to participate in the soft opening. It was very lovely. I really am impressed, she said. I love the pods. I love that the people are always nice. I love how the tables and bathrooms are beautiful. As Safe to Sleep's shelter monitor, Austin is the only staffer who is there overnight. She is joined by 2 volunteers who take turns sleeping. At the new shelter, those volunteers will take turns sleeping in a private room on a comfy twin bed and night table. Austin, who most would surely describe as bubbly and enthusiastic, said she's been with the nonprofit for about 5 years. I truly do love the ladies, Austin said. When they're leaving for the day, they're always like, I love you, have a great day, and I'm like, I love you too. I have a really playful rapport with them. I try to make sure I show up my best every day for them. Austin said she finds it particularly rewarding when she bumps into a woman who no longer depends on Safe to Sleep for shelter. It's so wonderful because I'll see them outside and they're giving me updates on their life and the fact that we helped them, she said, and they're like, I remember you. It's been her experience that So many of the women who are able to get back on their feet and into housing often want to return to Safe to Sleep as a volunteer or to bring in meals. I have seen so many people from so many different walks of life come through here, Austin said. I have seen people that have had just a bad day, and that bad day just kept going, and so they end up at our doorstep. On June 10th, the day after the soft opening, Lewis reported that the trial run went great. Several women said that they had the best sleep they've had in a long time, Lewis wrote in an email to the Daily Citizen. They loved the fans and the lights. They said the colors and layout were calming. They gave us good feedback, Lewis said, including pointing out we forgot a clock. Lewis said she anticipates Monday night to be a different ballgame, with 40 or more women coming to the shelter, learning the rules, the layout, and how things work. It will be wild, but it will be amazing, she said. We can't solve all the problems each guest has to face every day, but we can offer them a safe night's rest, a place to leave their belongings, and a plan to move forward. Baker retired from Safe to Sleep in the early days of the pandemic, in part due to health reasons, and also she and her husband wanted to do some traveling. Baker attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony and used the oversized ceremonial scissors to cut the ribbon, but she opted to skip the soft opening. She said she wants to give the staff, volunteers, and guests a few nights to get used to the new facility before returning to visit. Baker met with the Daily Citizen last week to talk about the shelter's beginnings and share her excitement about the new shelter. Baker, a former physics and science teacher, became involved in homeless services years ago when some of Springfield's now defunct homeless services, Victory Mission's Cook's Kettle, the Kitchen's Missouri Hotel, and Burrell's Bill's Place, were in operation on Commercial Street. Baker used to frequent these places and take free portraits of the homeless people, a hobby she continues to do today at the New Day Drop-In Center. As she became more familiar with Springfield's unsheltered community, Baker said it became apparent to her while there might be more homeless men on the streets, it was the women who lacked shelter options. The women out there were in danger, especially at night and out on the street, Baker said. As I drove the streets of Springfield, I would think, is there anywhere around here I could duck in and sleep overnight and hide? I just kept looking, where would I hide? As her concerns grew, Baker said it occurred to her that she had become friends with pretty much all the executive directors and CEOs of the nonprofits serving the homeless community. I knew not just the organization, but I knew the leader, she said. God was up to something. Baker soon found herself sitting on a committee to explore the possibility of a women's shelter. My thought was, all we need is a room with a restroom, maybe some air conditioning, this was summertime, and some cots. Where can I find a room? Baker said. Former CEO of the Kitchen, Inc., Rory Organ, said, we might be able to do something. Let me check into this. Baker said Orgeron offered up a kitchen-owned tiny apartment behind the Missouri Hotel. The Red Cross donated 8 cots. Then Executive Director of Victory Mission, Reverend Jim Harriger, told Baker that the women could walk over to the Cook's Kettle for a free breakfast every morning, and Safe to Sleep was born.
This is hot off the press 4 minutes ago this morning at the Springfield Daily Citizen and Missouri Independent. Gambling companies pour campaign money into a fight over Missouri video lottery bill. Gambling interests donated $1 of every $8 raised by lawmakers for this year's campaigns as video lottery backers seek access to a market with up to $10 billion in cash transactions annually. 4 days after Missouri lawmakers adjourned in May, a company hoping to crack open the state gambling market with video slot machines donated $200,000 to 3 of the proposal's biggest boosters in the General Assembly. Conservative leadership for Southeast Missouri, the Political Action Committee aligned with State Senator Jason Bean, a Holcomb Republican, received $100,000. Bean is likely to become State Senate President pro tem in 2027. Bean publicly championed the proposal this year, including using Senate floor time in May to showcase support among members expecting to return in 2027. The other recipients split the remaining $100,000. Half went to 417 PAC, aligned with State Senate Curtis Trent, a Republican from Springfield running for majority floor leader. If re-elected this year and chosen as majority leader, Trent will decide when a video lottery bill comes up for debate. The other half went to Missouri Enterprise PAC, aligned with State Representative Bill Hardwick, a Republican from Dixon, in a four-way GOP primary for the 16th District State Senate seat. Hardwick sponsored the bill that narrowly passed the House this year. The prize for the donor, J&J Ventures of Effingham, Illinois, is access to a retail gambling market with a potential cash handle of $10 billion and profits from $2 billion from lost wagers split between terminal operators, retail outlets, and the state. J&J is the nation's second largest operator of retail gambling terminals. The company has contributed $3.5 million to Missouri campaigns since 2015, more than half since the start of 2025, according to records of the Missouri Ethics Commission. We support people that support our issues, said Andy Arnold, lobbyist for J&J. We believe we need to play politically and campaign-wise to basically be able to have an entrance to talk to people. The top 5 recipients for gambling interest political donations in the 25-26 election cycle are Missouri House Speaker John Patterson and Missouri Alliance PAC, $249,900. Governor Mike Keogh and American Dream PAC, $245,000. State Senator Jason Bean and Conservative Leadership for Southeast Missouri PAC, $209,294. State Representative Bill Hardwick and Missouri Enterprise Fund PAC, $190,700. House Majority Leader Alex Riley and Missouri Leadership PAC, $166,000. That information comes from the Missouri Ethics Commission. J&J Ventures isn't the only gambling interest pouring money into Missouri legislative campaigns. A Missouri independent analysis of campaign finance records shows that political donations from video game operators, casinos, and sports betting interests exceed $4 million since the start of 2025. Of that amount, $3.4 million went to the legislative campaigns. That is about 1 out of every $8 reported by campaign committees and PACs for legislative candidates, though not all of the money is tied directly to the video lottery fight. The independent counted donations since January 1, 2025 from video lottery operators, casino operators, sports betting interests, and convenience store interests tied to the machines and the PACs, primarily funded by those groups. The total include donations to campaign committees and candidate-aligned PACs reported to the Missouri Ethics Commission. It is illegal to tie a vote to legislation directly to a campaign contribution, but that doesn't mean the contributions have no influence on votes, said State Senator Lincoln Ho, a Springfield Republican leaving office this year because of term limits. Money talks, and both sides of this issue have money. The casinos don't want it because they think gas station casinos are bad for their business, and the guys who have these machines that are all over the state want to legalize them. The political landscape. The two biggest donors, J&J Ventures and Torch Electronics, boosted their contributions since the start of 2025 by about 50% compared to the 23-24 election cycle. J&J Ventures has contributed $1.8 million so far, compared to $1.1 million in the previous cycle. Torch, the company that shut down its gray market video games in April under pressure from Attorney General Catherine Hanaway has given $1.3 million compared to $878,000 during the 2023-24 cycle. The casino-funded Missouri Gaming PAC has contributed $510,000, nearly triple its total from the previous cycle. The Independent sought comment from Torch representatives on its donations, but did not receive a response. The money has gone almost exclusively to incumbents and PACs aligned with their campaigns. Only 13 current Missouri House members, including 12 not seeking re-election, reported no gaming interest donations to their campaign or PAC since the start of 2025. The money did not perfectly predict votes. Some lawmakers supported Hardwick's bill despite receiving more from casino interest opposed to it, while some opponents had received more from video lottery backers. It's never an ending point where people quit asking for campaign donations, Arnold said. There's been multiple checks that Paladin, his lobbying firm's PAC, has written that I know the person did not vote for us on the gaming issue. That's fine. That's the way the system works. The key to getting a video lottery bill to Governor Mike Kehoe, the second largest recipient of gambling contributions this election cycle through his American Dream PAC, will be the Senate. There will be at least 11 new members in 2027. Hardwick, who wants to be one of those new senators, has shepherded a bill for video lottery through the Missouri House in each of the past 2 years, only to see it die in the Senate. Outgoing Senate President Pro Tem Cindy O'Laughlin, an avowed foe of the legislation, killed it this year in a select committee she chaired. Bean is unopposed in the race pro tem and is not on the ballot this year. He is the Senate's largest recipient of gambling interest donations since the start of 2025. His campaign and PAC have reported $209,294 in donations. When he used the Senate floor to show the latent support for the bill the day after O'Laughlin killed Hardwick's in committee. Okay, I'm going to start that one again. When he used the Senate floor to show the latent support for the bill the day after O'Laughlin Hardwick's in committee, he discussed it with 8 senators expecting to return next year who said they planned to back it. They definitely have a clear path to bringing it to a vote, Bean said in an interview with The Independent. Right now, from what I see in the Senate, I see that vote when we have that vote, it will pass. J&J Ventures had donated $120,000 directly to Bean's PAC, with PACs funded by J&J giving another $40,000. Bean has also taken $25,794 from the PACs controlled by former House Speaker Steve Tilley, who lobbies for Torch. In an interview with The Independent, Bean said voters understand him taking a donation that size. They see that that's just an important issue to the state of Missouri, Bean said. They would view that as an industry that's supporting, once again, the regulation of VLTs and wanting to bring the revenue dollars that we talked about back to the state of Missouri. For O'Laughlin, the donations are businesses as usual in Jeff City. I'm not going to cast aspersion on my colleagues, but you know it's about the money, O'Laughlin said, a Republican from Shelbina. It's moneyed interest, and they're trying to convince people to vote for what they want. It's really no different than any other special interest. O'Laughlin, who is not returning to the Senate due to term limits, has received $5,300 for her campaign committee from Gambling Interest and NEBO Leadership PAC, aligned with her politically, and has taken $125,100. Her campaign committee donations include $4,800 from Paladin PAC, controlled by Arnold and funded by J&J Ventures. Donations to the PAC included $75,000 from casino companies and the Missouri Gambling Association. Another $17,600 to be traced to J&J, and $17,500 came from PACs associated with Tilly. Arnold said he thinks the donations from the casino interest hardened O'Laughlin against the video lottery bill. She dug in on this issue more than any other issues she's dug in on, he said. O'Laughlin says she is not swayed by donations, adding that just about every big interest contributes to pretty much everyone. The stakes. It is impossible to know how much money has been wagered on slot machines played in gas stations and other locations since the machines first appeared about a decade ago. That is because they are not regulated like casinos and the lottery, which must report precise figures on how much is wagered and lost. What is known is how much cash is handled by legal video lottery games in Illinois, which is about 49,500 terminals in use. In the 12 months that ended April 30th, the games handled $13 billion in wagers, according to the data from the Illinois Gaming Board. That is about $265,000 for each terminal and $1,300 for every person over 18 in Illinois. Players lost $3.3 billion, with $1.1 billion of that going to state and local revenues. Bean estimates that the Missouri market could support as many as 35,000 video lottery terminals. If Missouri matches the Illinois results, that many machines would handle about $10 billion annually and bring about $600 million into the state treasury. The video lottery game companies and retail hosts would split about $1.2 billion. I firmly believe that once we get the machines regulated, that the income off of these machines could push north of $600 million. The machines provided by Torch and other vendors, whether legal or not, have become a source of sustaining revenue for rural convenience stores and veterans organizations, Bean said. If the money is cut off without replacement, he said, stores will close and charitable activities by fraternal organizations will decline. It's time to regulate it, Bean says. It's time to put this issue behind us and bring this revenue to the state. Legal gambling in Missouri is already a market worth more than $20 billion annually. The 13 casinos reported handling $18.3 billion in wagers during the fiscal 2025, with $17 billion bet on slot machines. The Missouri Lottery sold $1.6 billion worth of tickets in fiscal 2025, and $1.8 billion has been wagered on sports since December, with the first legal bets when the first legal bets were accepted. The opposition runs along two tracks. The first is a moral objection to expanding gambling. If we have to promote something that I don't believe anyone can say is a good stabilizing activity for families, then where do we draw the line, O'Laughlin said. If making money is the sole determination of what we'll do, there's really nothing we won't do. The second track is among lawmakers concerned whether the General Assembly should send the question to voters. Every form of gambling currently legal in Missouri has been approved by voters as an amendment to the Constitution. The first bingo games for charity in 1980, followed by lottery in 1984, horse racing in 1986, slot machines on riverboat casinos in 1994, charitable raffles in 1998, and sports wagering in 2024. The people of the state of Missouri need to weigh in on whether or not they want yet another form of gambling, especially casinos in their backyard, said State Representative Don Mayhew, a Crocker Republican opposing Hardwick in the 16th District Republican primary. Backers argue the Constitution's lottery section is enough authority to act without going to voters. The bill will never satisfy people who oppose gambling on principle, Arnold said, but it would put the machines out of sight in retail locations, keeping minors from playing and track the dollars being wagered, which is not done in the gray market. Law enforcement will not be able to shut down these games because new games will replace them. Only the legislature, he said, can create a law that makes any game not authorized by the lottery an illegal game. There's no bright line as to what's legal or illegal, Arnold said. You have got to make a case on each machine, and from our perspective, that's a whack-a-mole. This came from the Missouri Independent through the Springfield Daily Citizen and was submitted by Rudy Keller from the Missouri Independent.
Missouri regulators dispute company's explanation for marijuana vape recall. When Missouri cannabis regulators recalled hundreds of marijuana vape pens last month, the Kansas City-based manufacturer said the issue was related to evolving testing requirements for licensed facilities. But state regulators say the testing rules did not change, and certificates of analysis posted by the company and reviewed by the Independent show the recalled products were tested as bulk THC concentrate before being loaded into the vape cartridges that state rules require to be tested in finished form. State rules require manufacturers to test products in the form consumers buy them, not as bulk THC concentrate before packaging. The recalled products were manufactured by Kansas City's Local Cannabis Co., whose manufacturing license is listed under CPC of Missouri, Smithville LLC. The Division of Cannabis Regulations recall notice says THC concentrate must be sampled and tested after it is processed into vape cartridges, which the division says Local Cannabis did not do. The company's COO, Tyler Pugh, said in an emailed statement that Local Cannabis is actively working with the division to address an administrative hold impacting certain vape products related to evolving testing requirements for final form administration. This matter is not related to the quality or safety of our products. Pugh told The Independent the company was previously allowed to test in bulk, meaning testing an entire batch of THC concentrate before it is packaged into final products like vapes or canisters. However, Pugh said the state put out a press release on April 30th for new testing guidance, and the company is working with regulators to make those changes. We are proactively coordinating with our retail partners to replace affected inventory with newly compliant, fully tested products as quickly as possible, Pugh said. We appreciate the partnership and patience of our customers and retail partners as we work through the resolution process. But Lisa Cox, spokeswoman for the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services, which oversees the Division of Cannabis Regulation, said the state did not issue any new testing guidance on April 30th. The date may be a reference to the publication date for new rules, Cox said, posted on the Secretary of State's website, which were largely focused on new research licenses. The testing rules did not change on April 30th, she said. The Independent attempted to clarify with Pugh, through email and phone calls, exactly what new guidance he was referring to. He did not respond to requests for additional comment. Cox said the recall stemmed from another licensee questioning a certificate of analysis they received for a local cannabis product. Certificates of analysis, known as COAs, are documents labs provide showing test results and testing methodology. DCR determined discrepancies between the COA and the testing results, indicating testing was conducted earlier in the manufacturing process than required by rule, Cox said. Other affected products were then identified through analysis of track and trace system data. Local Cannabis posts COAs on its website, including many of the test results for the recalled products, according to the testing tag numbers, listed on both the state's recall list and the posted COAs. The COAs reviewed by the Independent show the state's largest marijuana testing lab, Green Precision Analytics, tested vials of THC concentrate, not vaping cartridges. Green Precision Analytics did not respond to emails and phone calls requesting comment. Ross Behrman, Director of Lab Operations at Fleur de Lis Analytical Laboratories Cannabis Testing, which has no connection to either Local Cannabis or Green Precision, said manufacturers have been required to test vapes after they are processed into cartridges since the recreational marijuana program began in 2023. This ensures, he said, that there's no leaching from the cartridges. Behrman said regulators have told labs it's the manufacturing licensee's responsibility to provide the products in their final form for testing. The recall has drawn attention in Missouri's cannabis industry in part because of its timing. Less than a month ago, local cannabis and another manufacturing licensee called Vibe filed a class action lawsuit against the state's largest marijuana company, Good Day Farm, and its nearly 50 affiliates. The two marijuana manufacturers allege a violation of Missouri's antitrust laws through price fixing, supplier allocation agreements, and coordinated conduct meant to consolidate control of the state's retail marijuana market. Pew had no comment on the timeline of the recall and the lawsuit. Of the dozens of dispensaries impacted by the recall, 3 companies are also named as defendants in the lawsuit.
Child advocacy here in Springfield, the center tops $7 million, nearing the $8 million goal. The Child Advocacy Center's capital campaign has surpassed $7 million, bringing the organization closer to its $8 million goals. Recent contributions from John and Kathy Risdall, the 3 Stone Homes, the Dar Family Foundation, and other supporters added more than $1 million to the campaign, according to a community announcement. This project has never been about just a new building. It is about making sure no child waits for help and every child has the opportunity to heal. We are deeply humbled by the extraordinary community response and are profoundly grateful for the commitment that is turning its vision into reality, said Executive Director Katina Dull in that announcement. In addition to the fundraising milestone, CAC has acquired a second property to enhance its services. The organization has been planning a 2-story, 10,000 square foot addition to its recently acquired location. However, an unexpected opportunity to purchase a neighboring building arose, and the organization decided to proceed with its acquisition. This opportunity allows us to expand our vision in ways that better support healing and growth for the children we serve. It reduces overall costs and allows us to create a dedicated mental health space with intentional therapeutic green spaces for children and families, Dull said in her announcement. The revised plan is expected to create a more welcoming and restorative environment, aligning closely with CAC's mission to provide safety, advocacy, and healing. With $1 million left to raise, the organization is encouraged community members and supporters to contribute to the campaign. Naming opportunities and multi-year pledge options are available for those interested in making a lasting investment in the well-being of local children and families, according to this announcement. This came from Janice Reeser through the Springfield News-Leader. Out of the Marshfield Mail by Joe Rios, a longtime Navy veteran is taking on a new leadership role with the Civil Air Patrol while encouraging more people to learn about the organization's mission. Kevin Seidenstrecker, who recently completed a 4-year term as commander of the Civil Air Patrol Squadron in Joplin, will assume command in Group 5 in southwest Missouri later this summer. Seidenstrecker spent 22 years in the U.S. Navy, including 13 years as a radar intercept officer in the F-14 Tomcat. Today, he volunteers with the Civil Air Patrol, the official auxiliary of the U.S. Air Force. The organization is best known for emergency response, search and rescue missions, disaster support, and youth development programs. Members trained to assist during emergencies and used aircraft, ground teams, and drones to help locate missing people and assess storm damage. Seidenstrecker said one of the most rewarding parts of the program is working with cadets ages 12 to 18. He said the organization helps young people build leadership skills, learn responsibility, and gain confidence through hands-on training and aviation experiences. The Civil Air Patrol is made up entirely of volunteers and welcomes both adults and youth members. Local squadrons across Missouri regularly train for emergency response while also serving their communities.
FIFA canceled 75% of reserved rooms months before the World Cup. No penalty fees paid. Visit KC says FIFA booked 5,000 rooms on peak days of the tournament, then released 75% of those bookings in February. Just a few days away from the start of the world's largest tournament, KSHB 41 News is learning more details about the expectations for hotel bookings. FIFA blocked off thousands of rooms for the World Cup, but then canceled 75% of those reservations at local hotels a few months ago. The new details come after KSHB 41 News previously reported how hotels weren't seeing as many bookings as they expected for the World Cup. According to Visit KC, FIFA booked 5,000 rooms per night on peak days during the World Cup tournament. Non-match days saw lower room holds from FIFA, but Visit KC would not confirm how many rooms were booked in total. FIFA then canceled 75% of the rooms they had reserved in February, which fell in line with the deadline outlined in their contract. As you may remember, hotel rooms and Airbnbs were costing hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars to stay in Kansas City several months ago. Bethany Markham is staying in downtown Kansas City for a work conference this week and booked her room in January, before FIFA canceled their blocks. "It was more expensive than I thought," Markham said. "What we were being quoted and paid was probably contingent on the fact that they expected those bookings. I think if you tried to get it now, you could get a deal." Hotel managers have previously told KSHB 41 News that bookings this summer aren't as strong as they expected, but are still hopeful reservations will pick up around match days. Visit KC confirmed that FIFA did not pay any penalty fees when the organization canceled 75% of its reservations in February, as was outlined in its contract. However, any cancellations with hotels beyond that day may incur individual hotel fees. KSHB 41 News reached out to several hotels to share their voice on how bookings are looking 1 week out from the first match, but no one responded to our request.
Okay, let's go to this day in history. We can go way back to 1215 when King John put his seal on the Magna Carta. Following a revolt by the English nobility against his rule, King John put his royal seal on the Magna Carta, or the Great Charter, on June 1215. This document, essentially a peace treaty between John and his barons, guaranteed that the king would respect feudal rights and privileges, uphold the freedom of the church, and maintain the nation's laws. Although more of a reactionary than a progressive document in its day, Magna Carta was seen as a cornerstone in the development of democratic England by later generations. John was enthroned as King of England following the death of his brother, King Richard the Lionhearted, in 1199. King John's reign was characterized by failure. He lost the Duchy of Normandy to the French king and taxed the English nobility heavily to pay for his foreign misadventures. He quarreled with Pope Innocent III and sold church offices to build up the depleted royal coffers. Following the defeat of a campaign to regain Normandy in 1214, Stephen Langton, the Archbishop of Canterbury, called on the disgruntled barons to demand a charter of liberties from the king. In 1215, the barons rose up in a rebellion against the king's abuse of feudal law and custom. John, faced with a superior force, had no choice but to give in to their demands. Earlier kings of England had granted concessions to their feudal barons, but these charters were vaguely worded and issued voluntarily. The document drawn up for John in June of 2015, however, forced the king to make specific guarantees of the rights and privileges of his barons and freedoms of the church. On June 15, 1215, John met the barons at Runnymede on the Thames and set his seal to the Article of the Barons, which, after the minor revision, was formally issued as the Magna Carta. Back in 1667, French physician Jean-Baptiste Denis performed the first blood transfusion on a feverish boy using lamb's blood. The boy recovered, but 2 other patients died from the procedure, leading to centuries-long bans on transfusions. A little bit closer to current day, in 1775, Congress voted to have George Washington lead the Continental Army. On June 5th, 1775, the Continental Army voted to appoint George Washington, who would one day become the first president and the commander of the colony's first official army. 4 days later, he accepts the assignment and signs his commission. Washington had been managing his family's plantation and serving in the Virginia House of Burgesses when the Second Continental Congress unanimously voted to have him lead the Revolutionary Army. He had earlier distinguished himself in the eyes of his contemporaries as a commander for the British Army in the French and Indian War of 1754. Born a British citizen and a former redcoat, Washington had, by the 1770s, joined the growing ranks of colonists who were dismayed by what they considered to be Britain's exploitative policies in North America, and in 1774, Washington joined the Continental Congress as a delegate from Virginia. The next year, the Congress offered Washington the role of Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army. And this day, 1 year later, in 1776, Delaware declared its independence. On June 15, 1776, the Assembly of the Lower Counties of Pennsylvania declares its independence of British and Pennsylvania authority, thereby creating the state of Delaware. Delaware did not exist as a colony under British rule. As of 1774, Pennsylvania had two colonial assemblies, one for the upper counties, originally Bucks, Chester, and Philadelphia, and one for the lower counties of the Delaware of Newcastle, Kent, and Sussex. All of the counties shared one governor. Thomas McKean and Caesar Rodney, the same two men who represented the lower colonies in the Stamp Act of 1765, proposed the lower counties' simultaneous separation from Pennsylvania and British Crown. McKean and Rodney, along with George Reed, represented the lower counties in the First Continental Congress of 1774, as well as the Second Continental Congress in 1775 and 76. Let's see, moving ahead. In 1846, the U.S.-Canadian border was established west of the Rocky Mountains. In 1863, now we're moving ahead almost 90 years from the Declaration of Independence, President Lincoln calls for new militia from mid-Atlantic states. On June 15th, 1863, President Lincoln issued a proclamation in which he calls for the mustering of new militia in the mid-Atlantic states of Maryland, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Ohio, in part to help protect Washington, D.C., America's capital city. Throughout June, Confederate Robert E. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia was on the move. He has pulled away his army from its position along the Rappahannock River around Fredericksburg, Virginia, and set it on the road to Pennsylvania. Lee and the Confederate leadership decided to carry a second invasion of the North to take pressure off of Virginia and seize the initiative against the Army on the Potomac. Okay, too much history for me. 1864 was the beginning of the Battle of Petersburg. 1905, in New York City's East River, 1,000 people on a riverboat died by either burning or drowning when the fire swept through the boat. This was one of the United States' worst maritime disasters. The riverboat steamer General Slocum was built in 1890 and mostly used as a vehicle for taking large group on-day outings. On June 15th, the St. Mark's German Lutheran Church assembled a group of 1,360 people, mostly children and teachers, for the annual Sunday school picnic. The picnic was to take place in the Locust Point in the Bronx after the cruise up the East River on General Slocum at about 9 a.m. Dangerously overcrowded boat left its dock in Manhattan with Captain William Van Schaik in charge. As the boat passed 83rd Street, accounts indicate that a child spotted a fire in a storm room and reported it to the captain. Reportedly, the captain responded, "Shut up and mind your own business." But as smoke became obvious, crew members were sent to investigate. By this time, the storeroom, filled with a combination of oil and excelsior, wood shavings used for packing, was blazing out of control. The onboard fire hose, which had never been used, tested, or inspected, did not work. In 1917, U.S. Congress passed the Espionage Act, some 2 months after America's formal entrance into World War I. And in 1943, SS Colonel Paul Blobel launches an effort to cover up Nazi atrocities. He is given the assignment of coordinating the destruction of evidence as the grossest of Nazi atrocities, the systematic extermination of European Jews. As the summer of 1943 approached, Allied forces had begun making cracks in Axis strongholds in the Pacific and in the Mediterranean specifically. Heinrich Himmler, leader of the SS, the elite groups of Nazi bodyguards that grew into a paramilitary terror source, began to consider the possibility of German defeat and worried that the mass murder of Jews and Soviet prisoners of war would be discovered. A plan was devised to dig up the buried dead and burn the corpses at each count and extermination site. The man chosen to oversee this year-long project was Paul Blobel. Blobel certainly had some of that blood on his hands himself, as he was in charge of SS killing squads in German-occupied areas of Russia. He now drew together another kind of squad, Special Commando Group 1005, dedicated to the destruction of human evidence. Blobel began with death pits near Lvov in Poland, and forced hundreds of Jewish slave laborers from the nearby concentration camp to dig up corpses and burn them, but not before extracting gold from the teeth of the victims. In 1944, American bombers deluged Budapest with leaflets. On June 15, 1944, American aircraft bombed German-occupied Budapest with leaflets threatening punishment for those who were responsible for the deportation of Hungarian Jews to the gas chambers of Auschwitz. The U.S. government wanted SS and Hitler to know it was watching to deter further deportations. Admiral Miklas Horthy, regent and virtual dictator of Hungary, vehemently anti-communist and afraid of Russian domination, had aligned his country with Hitler, despite the fact that he had little admired him. But he, too, demanded that the deportations cease, especially since special pleas had begun pouring in from around the world upon the testimonies of 4 escaped Auschwitz prisoners about the atrocities there. Hitler, fearing the Hungarian rebellion, stopped the deportations on July 8th. Horthy would eventually try to extricate himself. One day after the deportations stopped, Hungarian Jews prepared to take them to Sweden to save them from further deportations.
Thank you for listening to the Blind Community Thrift Store radio reading service. Tune in every week, Monday through Friday, on the Blind Community Thrift Store's YouTube channel at 10 a.m. for more up-to-date news from the Springfield News-Leader, Springfield Daily Citizen, Springfield Business Journal, and the 417 magazine. Listen after we are live on the Audio Reader Network at www.reader.ku.edu. All broadcasts are played over KSMU's subcarrier airwaves at 67 kHz on 91.1 from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Contact Audio Reader Network for more information on receiving a pre-programmed radio.